What's up? We're here. Welcome to another episode, Adventures in Business Live. Mandy, how are we doing?
Hi, Amani. Happy Monday, Amani.
Happy Monday, January 12th. The year is cruising right along.
It's cruising right along. Amani, what did you get into this weekend?
Let's see here. This weekend, I was at a DJ at Lounge on Saturday. What did I do Friday? We had NSA Las Vegas. We had our first meeting at a new location on Saturday also, so it was busy. Then yesterday, I just kind of chilled a little bit, watched a little football, and got us to today. What about you?
Well, it was Scoot's birthday weekend. It was my husband Scoot's
fun.
birthday. So he was calling it buddy weekend. And all he wanted was a buddy, and he just wanted a buddy to do yard work, basically. So he's got this whole backyard, and it's Farmer Scoot all the way. And I love it. It's beautiful. That just doesn't interest me. I love looking at it, but like, it doesn't interest me to like plant things and water things and just, I would rather outsource that, quite honestly. So I'm in charge of the inside of the house and like, calling the insurance companies when they screw up a bill. And then like Scoot's in charge of the backyard, basically. Anyways, he wanted a buddy. So I was like, okay, for one whole day, you got me, buddy. I'm your buddy. So yeah, like the palm tree in the front yard had like lost a couple fronds. So I like cut those up, and then I had the leaf blower. I was blowing stuff out of the way, and then I was putting dirt in pots and looking at our backyard right now. There was, we just moved back into the house after the renovation. So the TV had to be hooked back up, and the stereo system had to be hooked back up. So I was getting involved with speaker wire. I was just handing things to the buddy. Yeah. But I was trying to be positive about it the whole time. I'm like, all right, buddy, what's next, buddy? I got you, buddy. Yeah. I was just trying to really.
He's probably like, I don't want to hear that word buddy anymore. Are all the boxes gone?
The free box, the boxes that
we broke down. Packed up everything, stuff in.
We still have some boxes inside the house. Yes. Okay. I think we're just gonna take our time. We're gonna get done what we can when we can, and then one day our house will not have any boxes in it. But I don't foresee that for a couple months. I think because you know how it goes. Like when when you moved to Vegas recently, like you're moving in, but you're also purging and you're making decisions of what you're keeping or, whatever. So there's just a lot of working through all of that. So
I still have clothes to send to the Goodwill. I still am trying to figure out what certain lights do in the house. Like I still don't know. So it's still crazy. So
yeah, because your place was brand new. Your place was brand new when you moved in.
Well, I was the second one in it, but it was built in like 2021. So I got here after 2 years. And when you have a new build, sometimes there's some parts of the construction are a little bit wonky. So like some of
Yeah.
the stairs are kind of coming unpeeled. So I got to figure out how to get them back down. Just little things.
Yeah, just little
Yeah.
things along the way.
Yeah.
Really quick, now what you had NSA. Can you tell everybody what NSA is and what exactly you did with NSA this weekend?
So NSA stands for National Speakers Association. I'm a member of the Las Vegas chapter. I'm on the board for the Las Vegas chapter. We had a
Fancy.
guest speaker, Ernie Harker, who talked to us about AI and some of the crazy things you can do with AI. So that was
Ooh.
our guest. So we have a dinner the Friday night before the guest speaker, and then he comes and speaks to us like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays. We had a new location, so we had to get there really early. So it was a lot of logistics, but everything went well. He learned a lot, and yeah, it was good. That's what it is.
What was a takeaway? One AI takeaway that you got? Share it with our crew.
Just how easy it is to use a headshot and to have yours like a talking head. That's so I could take your headshot and type into these apps things you're saying, create a video of you saying it, and you've never said it before.
Oh, I mean, that's scary, but you could use that as content, like vertical
Yes.
video
You
content.
could
That's
absolutely
actually
use it
really
as content. The scary thing is that people can do that, from some nefarious ways too. But so he talked to us about that, different prompts, and he was just really scratching the surface.
nefarious. You've used the word nefarious 4 times since I've talked to you this morning.
It's people doing bad things.
So was that on your verbal advantage tape this morning or
I don't know what it
something?
was. I think I heard it, and I just like the word, and so it's just sticking so far today. But
I
next week
like
will be
it.
a different word.
Well, I like it. I like verbal advantage. A new word a week. You're making us
Okay.
smarter, Marty.
Right.
One new word
That's
at a
the
time.
goal. That's
Yeah.
the goal.
Well,
Well,
somebody else that's gonna
go
make us
ahead.
smarter,
Yes.
right?
Who else can make us smarter? Yes.
So what I'm loving about what's happening with our guests in January is, and this didn't happen. I wish we were smarter than this. I wish this was more strategic, but it just by the luck of the draw. Like every week, we're continuing to build with these amazing guests, these experts that actually help our guests get better on personal and a professional level. And I think there's going to be no surprise that when we bring this person to the stage, she is going to do the exact same thing for our guests. So she helps women break free and get unstuck. She's a founder, she's an author of a great book, The Everyday Leader. She's a creator of a really awesome podcast I was just binging on all weekend called Disrupting Default. I want to welcome to the stage Hema Crockett.
Yes. Welcome. We give you a round of applause. You see Hema right there on your screen.
Hello.
So yes.
Hi,
All
Hema.
right.
Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we're excited to chat with you. Thank you for being here with us. I would love to start off if you could define what burnout means to you.
Oh, what's funny about that question is when you say the word, there's a feeling that goes through my body more than just words. But it's the idea of going through the motions of life and feeling completely disconnected from everything you're doing. That's how I define it. It's like you're almost living somebody else's life, looking through, kind of your own eyes, but you just don't feel connected. You don't feel part of it. There's also a lot of random crying involved in my definition of burnout. It's almost like it's a random crying mixed with a little rage.
Oh, okay. Now,
I
if
identify
you
with
can
that.
share, have you ever tell us about a time perhaps when you've experienced burnout and how you were able to get through it?
Yeah, I'll think about one at one time because there's so many.
Yeah.
I think we all experience it at different places. And I think there's times that we experience it without realizing we're experiencing it, to be honest. But I've had it from a career perspective where when I was still in corporate before I left to start my own thing, I was noticing values misalignment between the leadership. And there was just a lot of, to use your word, Amani, nefarious behavior.
Right?
Yes,
Ding, 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 ding.
There was some questionable behavior. And what I realized was I was so focused on what my definition of success was with that company and in that moment that I was really driving myself crazy being there. I didn't know how I'd get to work in the morning. It was 6 a.m. and I'd be driving back. I would drive home at 8 p.m. I was there all the time. this behavior I kept trying to make excuses for. My husband was deployed at the time. And so I didn't really even have an outlet. It was just continuing to go through the motions, but I felt empty inside. I didn't really feel connected to what I was doing. And I would cry in the shower sometimes, or I'd scream in the car in the parking lot. And then you paste that smile on your face and you walk right in. And I think that was for me one of the first times where I realized there's way more to life than this. And so that was one kind of tangible example, but my God, there's a lot.
Okay. I'm gonna go over to you, Mandy, while I kind of calibrate and think about how I want to steer my next questions.
I appreciate talking about burnout because I feel like now I have a great system for burnout, but we're always like just a couple steps away from being burnt out, right? Like it's an action. You have to really stay on it. And I think something you talk about a lot that I find very interesting is order of operations. And Amani will joke with me because he knows I like an SOP, I like an order of operation. Like I like that. But what you talk about is how in life it's not linear, and how we think that we should have a specific order of operation, right? Like you go to school, you get married, you have kids, you have another kid, you get a bigger house, all these things you think you're supposed to do, and how you rewrote your own order of operations. So what did you think your order of operation needed to be versus how it ended up? It's kind of like those pictures, like here's what I look like doing a sit-up, here's what I think I look like doing a sit-up. Like, what did you think your order of operation needed to be versus where did it ended up?
Yeah, so I love this question because I thought of this term life's order of operations based on kind of the same idea of how we go from A to B, B to C, C to D. And we don't think, we just do. We move to that next step. So growing up, what I thought it should be was you go to school, you go to high school, you go to college. I didn't have a gap year. There was no such thing. You don't travel to Europe. You don't find yourself. You find yourself in college. That's what college is for. And then after college, you get a job. Again, there's no gap year. There's no finding yourself. There's no traveling. You go straight to work. Then you get your job, you get married, you buy a house, you have children, you retire, and you die. Right? I think it's 8 steps, which is kind of morbid and depressing and all of the things all wrapped up into one. And it was probably it was 2020, 2021 for me was kind of that, oh my gosh, there's another way to live. And that was because personally, my husband and I were going through IVF at the time. And there was absolutely nothing else going on in the world, right? In 2020, everybody was loving their lives, going out in public.
Fine.
Yeah, everything was fine. There was so much to do. So based on your age, there's sometimes nothing you can do. You're kind of on your biological timetable in certain instances. So, we decided this is our chance, our time to try and have children. We had decided that in 2019. 2020 was really when the doctor said IVF is your only option. So we go into IVF and we go through 3 rounds of egg retrievals that year. My husband waits in the car for every single one of these because it's COVID. He can't come inside. We take a little break. 2021 rolls around and we do our first transfer. And again, he's waiting in the car. We still have COVID. And I'm sitting in the transfer room. Can we swear here? How do you both feel about swearing?
I love it. Amani blushes. You should swear. Yeah.
You did tell me to make him blush. So then, I'm here for that too.
Go ahead.
So 2021 rolls around. I'm in the transfer room. Husband's waiting in the car. And I sat there after the transfer and was like, oh shit, I don't want kids. And I get to the car and I'm like, well, now I have to tell Mike I don't want kids. So I tell him, I said, this is what came up for me. And he looks at me and he's like, oh yeah, me neither.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, fuck, how did we get to this point that somewhere along the way, not that we were ever really trying, but we weren't not trying. So for 12 years, how did we decide that this was our course of action, spent all this money, time, ruined, the body, ruined the mental, ruined everything. And we're like, we don't want children. And that for me was that light bulb of life's order of operations needing to break. And that's where it broke for me. Because you don't have to have children to find meaning in your life. You don't have to have kids to lead a fulfilling life. Heck, you don't need to be married or own a home or do any of these things. And so it was that was really the first time where it was like our life's order of operations was so based on conditioning and based on the shoulds. And especially as a female, on top of that, all of the, well, what is your purpose in life if it's not to have children type of, things that you would hear. And that was it for me. That is when I decided I am completely rewriting this, and it's going to be on my own terms, not on what society, my family, everybody thinks it should be.
Beautiful. So what does your order of operations look like today?
Yeah, today it's really, I'm married. I've been married for a couple decades at this point. And it's wherever the open road takes me. I don't have an order of operations. It is whatever is in front. The phrase that has been coming up for me a lot is wide open spaces.
Ooh.
If that means I turn left today and next week it's turning right, then that's what we do, because it's all just about learning at this point. I've lived all around the world, and for me, that was something that really stayed with me in the experiences that I had. And so, our goal in a couple of years is really to see how can we continue traveling and really living and immersing in these cultures. There's no one way for me to live. And I think that's really the big thing. There's no one way for any of us to live. No one way is right. No one way is wrong.
I appreciate you bringing that up but when we were in the green room before we started the show, we were talking about how you appreciate how we don't give the guests questions in advance because it gives space for people to think freely, and it gives us as interviewers the opportunity to take a direction in the interview we might not have taken otherwise. And I feel like that is just a metaphor for life. Like so many times when we write down these plans in magic markers and the plans don't go according to plan, we can't change the plan, right? But if you just write it down in pencil and know that you can erase it or resketch it, it just makes that order of operations shift a little bit easier. So I hadn't heard somebody saying order of operations before, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's also the idea of meandering, right? I mean, whether it's in pencil or not, it's what do I want the outcome to be? I want a happy, healthy life. What does that look like? For me, that looks different than what it looks like for each of you. And so if that's the plan, then I need to rely on my own intuition and my own kind of sense of energy and what makes me happy to determine which way I go in order to reach that outcome. Forget how I get there. How I get there is how I get there.
Yeah.
Interesting. So a couple things here. First of all, Chris Porter says hello. He says he actually worked with you at Prometheus. He was in the lab.
My gosh, that is going way back.
Yes. Small world here. Small world. So we worked with you back in the day. Yes. And then shout out to Molly Wanless Smith, who's tuning in on LinkedIn. So Chris is on Facebook. Molly's on LinkedIn. You mentioned you lived in a lot of places. What are your top 3 places that you've lived in so far?
I'm going to give you my top 1 because it is such a difference between the one and the others, to be honest. I lived in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Oh.
And that has by far been the most life-altering, life-changing place on earth after the first 2 weeks of me acclimating to altitude and being okay living so far away from anything I've ever known. Outside of that, I've lived in Berlin and London as well. But Kathmandu has definitely, it's number 1 for me.
Interesting. Can you explain to us kind of how your business model is set up? Because I have questions for you about your coaching specifically.
Yeah. So, the coaching that I do, as you mentioned in the introduction, it's really focused mainly on women. I have had some men go through this as well, but it's really around how do we start moving from disengagement or that feeling of being disconnected, whether we're fully in burnout or we find ourselves slowly getting to burnout. How do we go from that to feeling engaged and connected? in our lives. And so the process is really around, how do we start digging? How do we think about what are those conditioning items that have come up in our lives? What are those limiting beliefs or those unconscious biases? How do we bring them to the surface?
Mm.
And then really it's asking that question of at what cost, because everything comes with a cost, right?
Yeah.
Me trying for somewhere on this, span of a decade plus to have children had a cost, whether I
Mhm.
knew it at the time or not. Me staying in corporate for too long had a cost. And so it's that idea of, what is the cost? What does it cost me? And then, am I ready to let go of it? Because it's an active process. And there's some things we're ready to move on from, and some things we're not.
Yeah.
And then we sit in this place in the middle for what I call a change or choice point. And it's uncomfortable for many people, because we're stripping away where we came from, but we're not quite building where we're going. And I do that intentionally because we live in such a noisy society that we don't have the opportunity to sit in silence. So in this change or choice point, it's about sitting in silence. It's about really letting what comes up come up, and deciding you now have a choice. You can either choose to change, or you can choose to stay the same. The option is totally yours, but now you're choosing to stay the same. It's no longer coming from a place of unconscious conditioning or anything that you weren't aware of. And then I work with clients one-on-one to build what next looks like. So it's really one-on-one coaching. I do have, right around the 3-month mark is really my minimum, because it's hard to stop this work.
Yeah.
And to be fair, once you start digging, right? It just comes up because you've gone there, you've allowed your body to go there. So I meet with my clients once a week at a minimum of 3 months. And it really is this idea of, let's work where we came from in order to move forward. So it's not just pure coaching. It really straddles this fine line between therapy and coaching. I'm not diagnosing, I'm not doing any of those things, but I want to understand the past in order for us to work through the past, so that we don't repeat patterns, we don't repeat cycles, and that you are building a life that you honestly have chosen, not that somebody told you you should.
Now, many people would be a little wary or scared about even wanting to work with you. How have you found your clients? What's been the best way for you to find clients and kind of grow your clientele?
Yeah, I am never one to force anybody to do anything. And it's usually one of those things that when you're ready. So that's how people have actually come across my website or my work. I write for Medium, I have the podcast, I have some of these other things. And I hold events as well. And so it's really been that idea of, somebody's already thinking about it. It wasn't new to them. It's kind of been circling or cycling for them. And it's like, here's somebody who speaks the language, who understands. I'm not saying I've never been there. I'm saying I lived it. I burned everything down in order to start over purposely. And the life that I've built with Recalibrate coaching is really what I wish I would have had when I went through this.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. And then, what has maybe been one of your most favorite success stories from one of your clients where they really had like some extreme and positive breakthroughs?
Yeah, it's somebody who, what originally started as, she was trying to figure out her identity from a work perspective, whether to stay corporate, start her own business. The biggest breakthrough actually came for her relationship with her mother.
Mm.
And all the things that she held back from speaking to her mother about, or asking questions, her mother who's, in her 80s, and she was always scared to bring things up to her mother. Or it was the trip that you stay for 24 to 48 hours and you quickly hit the road. You don't want to stay any longer. I see Mandy's face of, and so the biggest breakthrough there was really around this idea of, we think it's one thing. And she realized how not only her level of burnout, but quite frankly, her level of disengagement seeped through all facets of her life. And that for me was one of those stories where it was like, that is exactly what we're talking about, because she allowed herself to go there in places that may have been closed off in years past.
Okay. Over to you, Mandy.
I like this idea of this choose or change. You said choose or change, right?
Mhm.
And then you said sometimes people choose the same. I think so many times, and I know you talk a lot about this, is like we think we have to constantly be better and improve and this and that. But sometimes choosing the same is just fine. Like
Mhm.
it's totally okay to have one of those days. Like my sister calls it a newborn day. Like she just watches TV and then gets up to eat and then takes a nap. And it's just like this rotate. Like it's totally okay to have that kind of day. It's also okay to wake up the next day and have like a day where you're on fire. Like I wanted to explore that with you in the context of New Year's resolutions.
Mm.
So I think so many people feel pressured to create New Year's resolutions or new goals or this or that. And then other people are like guilted into it, kind of like you were into having kids, right? So, like, why do you think New Year's resolutions are a scam? And what would you like to say to people that just want to choose the same?
Yeah, I think the reason that resolutions are a scam, and I can tell you, just listen to the episode that came out
It's
last
so
week of the
good.
podcast.
Listen to the disrupting default. It's a very good podcast. Yeah.
That's exactly why we wanted to tackle the topic, to be honest, was because I've been guilty of doing resolutions in the past, right? And what is it? It's lose 15 pounds. Okay, so January, you go to the gym, you're super motivated. February, life kicks in, you're tired, you have to work late. March, something happens with family. And then what happens? You're right back in this cycle of, well, I'll try again. I'll try again. And you start to feel down on yourself. And then it becomes not only have I not lost 15 pounds, maybe I've gained a pound or two just because I haven't had the ability to either exercise or eat well, or I'm just busy and stressed out. We start getting down on ourselves. And the problem is that willpower is actually finite. And it's based on these goals, which are actually somebody else's definition of how we should look, how we should behave, how we should present to the world. But if we start to look at, instead of resolutions, this idea of what's important in my life, how do I want to live my life? Then it becomes okay to have these newborn days, as your sister calls it. Although I would say that I do think that she's actually doing a lot in those rest days because she's helping the next day and the next day and the next day to continue forward. But this idea of resolutions is this place of what society thinks I need to focus on, and not what may be a priority to me. I also think transformation doesn't happen, all of a sudden the clock changes to January 1st and it's like, new year, new me. Let's start over. Let me forget everything from last year. We're going to be happy and we're going to do all these things. Transformation takes time. It takes months, years. And rather than allowing ourselves the time and the focus, we get so stuck on short-term goals. And so I'm a huge fan of baby steps. If my big goal is to live this happy, healthy life, well, I have facets to that. I have spiritual health, I have physical health, I have emotional health. Maybe that's doing 15 minutes of meditation, a day. That's important to me. That's not a resolution. That's just something I find important for this lifelong goal that I have. So I think it's about, redefining what it means to us and not resolving to be somebody that we're not.
Yeah, I love it. And while we're here, I want to talk about default behavior and disrupting default. You talk a lot about that. My husband and I, we talk a lot about default behavior. I come from a big family, and he always says, like, whenever you're with your little sister, like I know exactly what it was like growing up with you two. Like you're just both clowns. Like but it's true. Like I can be whoever I am naturally, but like whenever I get with my little sister, I go into default behavior. And I don't think that's a bad thing. There's plenty of other default behaviors that are bad, but like we go back into being the two youngest in the family, like the clowns, like running the circus, right? And so my husband and I talk a lot about default behavior. We talk about like you are so accustomed to certain things that happen that you just default to what you're comfortable with, right?
Yep.
But then you build on that and talk a little bit about disrupting default. So can you just share a little bit about what that is and how you use that in your practice.
Yeah. So the idea of default is really this idea of autopilot. We just do things. It's like driving a car. When you first learned to drive that car, you had to pay attention. Your mirrors, your seatbelt, if you went to traditional driving school, what was it, 10 and 2 that you put your hands at, right? Where your mirrors face, all of these things. And then as months went on, you just got in the car, put your seatbelt on and started driving. You just kind of did it. It's on autopilot now. So the idea is, how much of our life do we just live on autopilot without stopping to ask, is this what I want? Am I happy? So disrupting default is the idea of literally putting up that stop sign and asking ourselves that question, that intentional pause of, is this really what I want? Or am I just doing this because society expects me to, my family expects me to? And that's part of my Recalibrate coaching practice, especially at that beginning part where we talk about at what cost? What has this default behavior cost you? The conditioning, the limiting beliefs that we have around ourselves. What have they ultimately cost us? And these can be small things, honestly, or they can be big things. I think when we talk about life's order of operations, the default is you buy a house because a house is a measure of external success. According to who? Right? Anybody who's owned a house knows it's exhausting. Mandy, you had all that housework or that yard work, right?
Buddy work one day. Yeah, it was a lot.
Buddy work is a lot. And you think about these things and it's like, okay, so I have a house and now what? Why do I care? And so it's making sure that we're not just doing things because we think we should, that these are our autopilot, kind of how we behave. It's about making sure that we cut that cord and we say, whoa, stop. Is a house really important to me, or is saving my money to travel the world more important to me? What are my priorities in this life? And that's how you disrupt default.
Beautiful.
I want to go back to the resolutions conversation. Do you have an activity that you recommend instead of resolutions?
I recommend working backwards, actually. So starting with what's important to you this year. Right? It doesn't have to be, the 3-year, 5-year, or 10-year stretch. Just what do you want to do this year? Right? Maybe that's find a new job. Maybe that's quit your job and start your first company. Maybe that's run a marathon. Whatever it is. What is that thing that you would like to do? And then you work backwards. What are the baby steps you need to take to get there? Right? You're not resolving to run the marathon. You're not resolving to start your own company. You're just saying, this is important to me this year. And now you focus on that. So it's almost deciding what is that outcome and then working backwards.
The reason I ask is that Mandy and I are doing an activity now. It's like a bingo card. So you have your bingo card for the year and you kind of do just what you say. We're working our way backwards. We're putting things on that we want to accomplish. And then how we get there is how we get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what that also allows is you not to get down on yourself. Yeah. If something doesn't happen, right? If you have resolved to work out every day for 40 minutes and life gets in the way, now you're just like, man, I'm a loser. I have failed because I didn't do this resolution that I put on myself, which is unrealistic based on how my life actually works, right? Yeah. So with the bingo card, it's like, look at all these cool things that you get to do by the end of the year.
Yeah, we can get a win. We can get bingo. We can get blackout bingo. We can do all the things.
That's right. All the things.
You can't. But, it's funny, Imani, because as I was making the bingo card yesterday, I was like, I don't want to do it for the whole year because then I can't cross things off till the end of the year. Yeah. So I actually did my bingo card by June 30th because I was like, I was like thinking about the micro goals. I was like, if I can get to this by this date, then all these other outcomes will happen. Like this is just like you said, a baby step towards those bigger things. And it helps, cross off another X on the bingo card. So I was like, and then I was thinking cumulatively. I was like, how you're like, I want to do 365 notes in a year. I want to do one a day. And I'm like, well, if I don't get one a day done, if I get 365 by the end of the year, I'm happy with that, right? Like it's the 12th. So if I haven't written 12 notes, that's fine. I can do 3 tomorrow or something like that.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So I do like this idea. Well, I always like a micro goal, but I like this idea of the cumulative baby steps to get to the bigger
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I also want to ask you about your book writing process because Mandy and I are both authors, and I'm fascinated whenever I meet authors. So you've written 2 books.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult part of writing either book?
When you have a co-author, making sure that the tone of what you are sharing stays the same, and that you're not kind of splitting chapters, if that makes sense. So if you have chapter 1, I'm focused on chapter 1 and the co-author is focused on chapter 2, or that you have very distinctive pathways. So for the Everyday Leader, which Mandy mentioned at the beginning, it's actually a book my husband and I wrote together, which we never thought we would write a book together. We managed to stay married through the process, which was, thank you. Yeah, no, it was pretty amazing. It was worth celebrating, to be fair. But I learned a lot about him in the process, but we had also our way of doing it. So he always started each chapter and I always ended each chapter. So it was just kind of defining what you're good at and what the point was in order to go into it. So it doesn't come out like, some type of crazy tie-dye machine gone crazy.
Did you start it that way? Like when you were like, oh, we're going to write the book, I'm going to do the beginning, you're going to do the end, or did it evolve into that?
It evolved into that, but it was really based on what the idea was. So the Everyday Leader is actually based on, I mentioned that my husband was active duty military at the time. So he retired from the Marine Corps in 2018. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were talking about leadership and just, at that time in corporate, especially, leadership was kind of all over the place. Yeah. People didn't really know what to do. You send people home. They couldn't lead when they were in the office. They're really not going to lead from their home office. And he was talking about how in the Marine Corps, you're taught how to be a leader from day one. So you have 18-year-olds who are taught leadership traits and leadership qualities. And I was like, gosh, I don't even know what that's like. Any corporate environment I was ever in was, you get nominated if you're good in order to go to that next place. And so the book idea came from the 14 Marine Corps leadership principles. And so that's when, as we talked about the book idea, it was really deciding, why don't we start with a story? One of his stories from the military of where either that leadership trait was really good or he did not do well at all, and kind of a lesson learned. And then I would tie it into business. So it evolved there, but it had to do with the idea of the book ultimately.
Now, in retrospect, when writing the books, is there anything you would do differently based on what you learned along the way?
Probably not write one.
Not right. Why do you say that?
No, the truth was, I think that I really did enjoy the process of writing. I love writing. What I probably wouldn't have done is written 2 books in 1 year. That was exhausting. Both were released in 2021, one in February, one in August. I would have allowed a little bit more space in between those. And they were published very differently. The first one was traditional. The second one was hybrid. So I learned a lot around the publishing process and who owns copyrights and how much of your own material you can use, depending on which route you go. So that was probably what I would do differently. Stick really with the kind of the hybrid, the self-publishing route so that I own my own material.
You're talking to 2 hybrid authors right now, so that's great advice.
We live, we learn, though. You have to you got to go through it. We've got a lot of friends that have gone through it. We partially went through it. Like you got to live through it.
Yeah. You have to. You can't explain it sometimes unless you go through it.
Exactly. Yeah. We've come to the point in the show where it's time to flip the script. Yes. So you get to ask both myself and Mandy any question you like. Nothing is off limits. Who's first, and what question do you have for that person?
All right. So Amani, you're first.
Okay.
You're first. So what advice would you give your 21-year-old self about the difference between building a personal brand and actually being yourself?
I would say to 21-year-old Amani, I would say try to be as authentic as possible so that the personal brand you're building is really you, so you can just keep that going for as long as you live. And you want to be the same person both. It's the same person. You want to be the same person, as authentic as possible. That's the advice I would give.
Did you find that you were 2 different people?
Maybe at first, because kind of going back to something you were saying before, you're trying to fit into maybe what other people want you to be. For example, I've loved Mariah Carey for a long time, and I used to try to hide it a little bit back in the day just because, she sings love songs. She's not as hard or whatever. But no, I love her. So I'm quite outspoken about that. That's
I
just a little
love
fun
this.
example. I used to love, to my detriment, romantic comedies. I'm trying to think of the whoever did 16 Candles. Like, I love the
John
way he would.
Hughes. John
Yeah,
Hughes.
yes, big John
Yes.
Hughes fan. But that's not really real life. But I still would kind of aspire to get like that. And I used to try to, make jokes of it, but I'm out, that's who I am and I'm proud of it. So that's what I would say.
I love it. And it feels like you show up differently.
Yeah.
Right? When you are authentically your personal brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you
it's who
light
are.
up. Amani, you light. Didn't you notice that, Hema?
Honestly,
You
even
light
the mention of Mariah Carey, and there was a smile, and there was,
Yes.
it was
See,
real.
Mariah, she's right there. She's right there behind me.
A
So
posture change, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And that right there is how you're supposed to live, right?
Amen. Yes, exactly.
Just true to you.
Mm-hmm.
Aw.
I
Yeah.
love it. So Mandy, the question I have for you is a little bit similar, but really more around kind of the coaching work that you do.
Mhm.
So from a sales perspective, how do you coach people to maintain their own identity, especially while excelling in like service-oriented roles where it's about other people?
I love this question. This is probably one of the number one things I see people doing wrong. Entrepreneurs are salespeople, whether they like it or know it or not, and salespeople, because people think you're supposed to do certain things or be like certain things. And as soon as people hone their true voice, as soon as they are like, oh, this works and I feel really good doing this, but I haven't read this in a book before, or this is exactly what somebody told me not to do and I'm doing it, but it works. I think that's the thing. I encourage people in my coaching practice, experiment, right? So, like if you're looking at prospecting for new business, it's not just about a cold call. It's about how are you engaging? Are you more comfortable behind the screen? Are you more comfortable at a networking event? Are you more comfortable on a phone call? Are you more comfortable with acts of service? Are you more comfortable delivering something to somebody? Like figure out where you are more comfortable, and all of that outreach, all of that outbound outreach, those are all tools in your toolbox. But figure out the one that you are more comfortable with, and that is probably the one that is going to be more successful. And I also encourage people within the practice of like, I rhyme, right? Not everybody's going to rhyme. Not everybody, an out of office poem is not going to work for everybody's personal brand. That's fine. Find whatever that is. If you have resting bitch face all the time, if that's you, sorry, Money, I swear. If that's you, build on that. Like tell people that from the beginning. Like, listen, I don't like people. This is what you're working with, but I will work hard for you. I will deliver for you, and you will get the best XYZ ever. Like manage people's expectations and build on that. And it's totally okay. So yeah, we do a lot of like developing your inner voice work within the sales coaching process for sure. Great question.
I love that because when I started my first business about 7 or 8 years ago, it was trying what other people had done, and it felt gross.
Yeah.
It
It
did
does feel
not feel
gross.
like me at all, but it worked for somebody else. So my brain at the time was like, oh, then it should work for me. And there's that issue again. It should. And when I decided that I needed to show up weird and all, maybe we meditate before sessions, maybe we do breathing exercises, maybe we get a little woo in between. Life's been grand.
Yeah.
Ever since then.
Oh, I'm so happy you found that for yourself. And then you're also finding the right customers, because there's going to be some customers that are like, that's too woo woo for me.
Right.
I'm not into it. But that's also not a customer that you want, because if they're not open to that, they likely aren't going to be open to other ways that you're going to be coaching them as well. So I think it's like a mutual coaching experience too. It's funny that you say that, because I see on TikTok and Instagram Reels, I see these bros all the time trying to show people how to do cold calls. And they're basically trying to trick people. And I know that works for some people. First of all, that would never work for me as a buyer. As somebody that interacts with salespeople all the time, that just wouldn't work. I get really annoyed by that. But I can see how that would work. And as I'm watching that, I'm like, this would never work for me. Like I'm not a trickster. I don't like being tricked. but I can see how this will work for some people. And so I understand when you're saying that, like there are some things that people say, try this, it's surefire, it'll work. But like, if you're not comfortable delivering that, or if you're selling a product that you don't like, everybody's going to feel that, and it will feel gross, like you said.
Yeah. I love that you help people find kind of what works best for them.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Now, I want to take you back to Tucson.
Oof.
And I'm going to flip your question that you asked me back to you. So we're walking across the stage in Tucson, University of Arizona. You've just graduated. Based on everything you've learned in life, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
First of all, to show up for your college graduation.
That was kind of manifest that in reverse.
Basic advice. Basic advice. I was so focused on next that I didn't show up.
Oh.
Right. So I had actually graduated probably a week and a half after I turned 20. And I was ready for next. I had a job. I had all these things ready to go. And graduation was just that piece of paper that comes in the mail to tell you, hey, you did it. But I wanted life, order of operations, school, check, work, next up. And I would tell my 21-year-old self, show up, enjoy that moment, because life changes drastically after that moment. I'm actually right now doing kind of some inner child work as well. And one of the things that came up for me in this process was how, when I was in college, the idea of wide open spaces, the world was available to me. And the older you get, sometimes that view narrows because you just know too much, right? And you kind of absorb too much. And I would have told my 21-year-old self, stay, keep that mentality and never narrow that scope.
Why do you think as we get older, our scope narrows?
I think for many reasons. I think it's for the same reason why we don't jump off a swing at 50 that we used to do at 12, right? The crash hurts. It takes us a lot longer to recover than it did when we were 8 or 9 years old. And I think now we get too scared. We let our fear take over. And we think about, well, that's not what somebody my age should be doing. That's not what somebody my age or of, my stature or of my title or of my bearing in life should be spending their time doing, rather than just doing it. So I think it's all up here. I don't think it actually is based in reality.
Yeah. Like if we were at a poetry reading, I would be giving you finger snaps right here.
I mean, I'll take them right now anyway.
You can still do it. I'll do it. I'll give you some snaps.
Go ahead. Over to you, Mandy. Great. I love that answer. Good answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to talk about getting stuck. I think so many women, I think people in general get stuck. But I just know so many women after a certain time frame, whether it's they've been in a job for a while, a marriage for a while, their kids are a certain age, like people are stuck. And I think more people are stuck than they would admit, and they don't know that they're stuck. So in your practice, when you see somebody stuck, what is one little thing somebody can do to start moving the marble away from being stuck?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to give you two things, actually. Both are actually related, just in kind of different ways. One is to pause. Again, we live in such a noisy world. If you open up Instagram, there's buy this, look like this, dress like that. I think if we just paused before we responded, before we pressed buy, before we ordered whatever it is, we would feel very differently, because we would take back control versus almost just reacting versus responding. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. That's it. Number 2, say no once a day. Right? Just start with once a day. How many times, especially as women, do we just say, yes, I'll do that? We have no idea how we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. But it's exhausting, and it adds to burnout, and it adds to feeling like we're stuck, and it adds to the hamster wheel. And so if you pause before you react, you have the opportunity to say no. And that starts moving that needle because now you're in control of the decision versus letting the external environment control the decision for you.
I love that. I'm going to pose this question to the group here. What did you say no to today?
Well, why don't you answer first while we think?
I know, right?
What?
You're a great
What did you say
question,
no to
Angie.
today,
Go ahead.
Mandy? Yes, what did you say no to?
Well, it's funny because I literally said no earlier. As you were saying that, I was like, what did I know I've said no at some point today already. I did say no. My husband wanted me. I was in the middle of writing my daily handwritten note. I was putting tape on the envelope. And my husband came in asking me questions about our health insurance. And I was like, can you let me finish what I'm doing? And then I will answer whatever insurance questions I can. It was just a little no thing. But I was so proud of myself in that moment because normally I'd be like taping the envelope while listening, while answering. And I was like, no, like this is a ritual for me. Like sitting down and writing and addressing and putting the tape on, like that's a ritual that I really enjoy to completion. That like if I would have allowed that question in before I stopped my little process, I probably would have diluted the process for me. So that when you said that, I was like, oh, I'm so proud of myself. I said, no, there's probably more I'll say no to, but okay. Now that was my no for the day. What did everybody else do?
I think I saw my dog sniffing around in the trash and I said, no. So far, that's the one time. So yes.
Good.
Only one, I'm impressed. I think I've told my dog no at least 12 times so far. No, you can't have another treat. No, you can't go in that room. No, you need to get off the chair. For me, mine is actually a little bit different way of saying no. I usually say no when it comes to accepting help. And so today I actually said yes. So I have an event coming up later this week on Thursday, and I'm making little gift bags. And my husband said, do you need help? And my first answer was, no, I got this. And I said, actually, I do need some help. Right. So it was the opposite of what I normally say no to, giving myself permission to pause and say, you know what? I do need some help. The other thing I said no to was trying to cram in a bunch of meetings in the next 2 days in order to feel like I have to do it, and instead pushing some things to next week. So no, I can't fit that in this week. I'm going to put that into next week.
It's good. Yeah. And that pause, man, you hit a pause to say yes, which was actually super helpful. And I'm sure your husband loved helping you too.
He has yet to do it because that's later this evening. I'll need some help. But it's nice, right? Because it also makes you realize you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Shout
awesome.
out to Anand Patel, who's joining us. So welcome in. Mandy, you want to bring us home?
Yeah. I mean, you've spent an hour, a little more than an hour with us, and you've helped us and you've lifted up our audience so graciously over this time. What can we do to lift you up and to support you as we move forward?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would say tune into the podcast, which is Disrupting Default. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We release episodes every other week. You can follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram as well. And if you or somebody you know in your life feels either stuck on the verge of burning out, just at a crossroads in their life, I am here. And so, using the website, which I think you had mentioned was on the ticker as well, using the website. But I think I am also just a huge believer in this idea of human sustainability. So even if you took one thing away today and using that and putting that into practice around those in your community, it's about helping each other as we go along on this journey. And my goal is really, how many people can I affect, even if I'm not coaching them one-on-one?
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Yeah. So Hema Crockett, Hema, and then Crockett with 2 T's at the end, or go to recalibrate _Hema Crockett on Instagram and just connect. Hema's got a lot to share with us. Yeah.
Connect. I also write on Medium as well. So every other week, and my website has a blog too. So just other ways to stay connected and to get new content.
Beautiful.
Sounds like we'll give you a round of applause. We'll put you back in the green room, but thank you for being an amazing guest. A round of applause for Hema Crockett right here.
I'm giving her some snacks. Yeah. Thanks, Hema.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Mandy, another amazing show.
Yeah.
Thank you. What and who do we have to look forward to next week?
We have Alessandra Wall, second time guest.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to talk about executive leadership and continuing to grow, say no, all the good things. Yeah.
All right. Good. Well, make sure if you're watching or listening, you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast and live stream on the platform you're watching. Feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube. Share it with a friend. Thanks again to our guest today, Hema Crockett. And we will see you all next week, 1 p.m. on the West Coast, 4 p.m. on the East Coast. And that'll do it for this show. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.